Let's start off with $250,000
to the Crown Plaza.
to the Crown Plaza.
Yeah.
From what we've discovered online so far, the company that owns the Crown Plaza doesn't seem to be hurting financially.
They have a $3.5 million budget to redo the hotel.
It's ridiculous. $250,000 into that budget is rounding error on the rehab. The reality is that $250,000 pays for at least 3 police officers for an entire year. And considering the number one problem with people for downtown is the perception of crime, don't you think that it would be better to have the police officers than to redo the buffets?
Yeah,
I mean, our police staffing is an all-time low. We're poor.
Yeah.
We don't have money to redo the streets, the public infrastructure we're supposed to take care of. Yet we have money for private enterprise. And for the life of me, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
And all these claims about job creation, well, we've heard this over and over and over, where companies say that and then they don't do it. There's no follow-up, there's follow-through. The reality is, these guys bought the Crown Plaza at a fire sale. They got it dirt cheap. It's a great property still. It needed refurbishment. It needs better management. They're going to make fine money if they know what they're doing. And if not, oh well. It's not the city's responsibility to make sure we have a hotel.
Right.
We don't pay our taxes, the people who live in the city of Dayton, to have a hotel. We pay our taxes to have police, fire,
Lights.
roads that are paved. They, picked up the trash.
Right.
We seem to spend more time worrying about people panhandling than we worry about actually doing what government's supposed to do. And I've been ready to write a
So if you had $250,000 to spend in the city, obviously you just said,
police
officers.
right now.
What else could you spend
But
$250,000 on? 2 city pools to be open in a neighborhood that's
we have no more parks and recreation program. There is nothing for the kids.
That's true.
We've destroyed that. It's bad enough that even though busing is over, the kids still don't get together and actually know who lives in their neighborhood because they go to 6 different schools.
Yeah, plus they've got charter schools now.
Right.
On top of the 30, how many?
34?
34 Dayton public schools there
I
are.
think so.
And this is something that never gets mentioned in the media. I can't believe it doesn't, because it's a massive expenditure of public monies. And I really
The busing of the charter school students?
Sure, how many charter schools are there in Dayton? 30 something.
We see buses on the street still at 6 and 6:30 because they're going all over town.
My kids now get picked up at 8 to get to school for a 9 o'clock start. They get out at 3, they get home at 4. They're riding an hour. It's taking an hour each way. To Horace Mann, which is literally...
It's up the hill.
It's up the hill.
Yeah, it's 5 minutes.
It's 2.2 miles. It's a 5-minute drive. Walking, we do it 20.
Yeah, but on top of what they've got going on with Dayton Public Transportation, they also have to deliver
all the charter students.
Which that also means, what most people fail to realize, is that each one of those kids can choose to go to any one of those charter schools.
Yeah, they don't have to just do within the area.
If they want to go to the charter school completely on the other end of town, and so that labyrinth is added on to the already labyrinth.
What I've done,
it's not totally neighborhood schools yet. Kids still going on.
You support chickens, the legalization of chickens in the city?
Yes.
Well, it's a big issue. You're running for Congress.
Chickens are a danger to free society. It's what next thing comes up, they'll be communists.
Yeah, well, isn't the anti-people who don't want to grant the right to people that have chickens, aren't they just kind of, I mean, at least on a small scale it's manageable.
Chickens are dangerous. They make they poop. And then it's fertilized.
You gotta
ground.
feed them.
Yeah.
You have to feed them.
They lay eggs every day all over the place.
Yeah, it's a horrible
Yeah.
thing. But realistically, this idea of this local food thing is absolutely where this country needs to start looking at and moving forward, because I hate to tell you, when you're buying stuff in the store, you don't really want to know what goes on.
That's right.
You don't want to know where those chickens
I've
came
seen
from.
food.
I mean, even farmers, like I knew a lot of farmers in northern Wisconsin, and they usually focus on some area, like
Right.
dairy or
Right.
beef cattle or like whatever they were doing. They usually didn't have their own garden, and I mean this was not the case a couple decades ago.
Right,
No.
right.
Everybody grew their own food. They drank milk out of the tank. I mean that was just what
Family
happened.
farms.
But no, they didn't. They didn't even drink the milk out of the tank. They went to the store and bought the milk. I mean, we've just
It's
convinced.
manufacturing.
Sure.
Right.
My oldest daughter lives just outside of Madison in a little town called Stoughton. And Madison's had chicken ordinance for a long time. But their little town of Stoughton, it took them 6 months. They had to come up with all the research
Right.
and give them all the evidence. They finally got the ordinance passed, which was great. But it took them 6 months.
to
It takes
decide.
15 minutes to declare war.
Right.
It's
Wait a
absolutely
second,
crazy.
we didn't declare war.
Yeah, we don't even have to declare war anymore. What are you talking about?
But it's absurd.
Yeah.
And then when we think about some of those things we've seen about Southern California near LA, out in the desert where people have been left alone forever
Right.
and ever.
Oh, yeah.
Suddenly they're moving in on them because it's almost as if anything that people do themselves is somehow a threat to
Right.
the
They
status
want us
quo.
to be dependent
Exactly.
fully.
The car has created a huge problem for
Yes.
Americans because they become so dependent on it. And it's the second highest expense you have after your house.
our
cities
community,
tied to healthcare.
the way the cities are designed,
You're
you can't help
forced
from
to
being
have to drive.
dependent
Right,
upon it.
right.
It's not like you
It's
have
not
any
like
other
Europe.
choice.
We don't
like
have the
that.
option to walk to the
here's
store.
some, in a hotel, actually in a bed and breakfast in Columbus, and I'm sitting there having breakfast with a guy who happens to be an automotive engineer from Stuttgart, and his specialty is the internal combustion engine. I said, "Are you worried?" He says, "Oh, I'm not worried." I said, "But electric vehicles." He says, "Electric vehicles will never be practical." I can argue with him a bit, but I'm like, "Well, what do you think the solution is?" It says, "You want to stop being energy dependent in America? Electrify your trains."
This is like a visceral reaction to anything that's not
Right.
car-centric in this country.
But that was just moving freight, and we don't move near enough freight now using trains because our rail lines have been allowed
They're
to
18-wheelers, basically. That's
Right.
our freight.
Right.
And it
But-
makes traveling horrifying.
But
Die
high
anytime.
speed rail, bringing that into this country, especially after what we've seen happen with airplanes being turned into, at least
Yeah.
a train can't be taken off the track and run into the World Trade Center.
Well, that's
we invest in mass transit and urban cores, we invest in high speed rail between cities. We start having some tangible results for their money that we're investing, as opposed to this crap where we're investing in this little company or that little company because we think, no, let's invest in things for everybody. We've got to get our internet infrastructure up to speed. We are a third world nation when it comes to internet
Well,
speeds.
all of our infrastructure on any level
Well,
is crazy.
This is the fact that Estonia and South Korea have internet
Right.
speeds 20 times what we have,
Right.
and they're 100% coverage.
Yeah.
And this is how information technology is going to be delivered to the next generation.
Right.
I'm sorry, we need that infrastructure built just the same way we need the interstate highways built. It is a matter of national defense. Because once you have that bandwidth and that pipeline, there's no reason that you have to go into an office to do an awful lot of jobs.
Right.
And if you've got the bandwidth to sit at home and do it in your underwear,
Exactly.
You know.
we need to do something to solve this, because if we have the bandwidth, if we have that infrastructure, there's less reasons to drive.
Right.
And when we talked about food, this is something people don't understand. Because we don't grow it locally, because we're buying, tomatoes from South America,
Right.
how does it get here? Oil.
Right.
Right.
We noticed when we went up to Toronto that the city is surrounded by hydroponic
Greenhouses.
greenhouses.
Acres.
Yes, there is no reason to be getting food from hothouses in South America. We could have
Right.
hothouses here.
Well, it's cheaper. And that's
Well-
ostensibly.
Right.
So,
Well-
if we just think about the dollars that we're putting out, it's actually cheaper to buy food from South America than it is from somebody down the road, which is absurd. I mean, that really
It
speaks
is-
to such
It
a
is.
huge problem.
It
Yeah.
is absurd. It is insane.
Yeah.
But we forced out the small grocers. We've forced out everything, and it's created the
But we also
consequences keep happening.
subsidize these companies, because if they actually had to bear all the
Oh, yeah.
costs associated with getting those goods
Transportation.
to market,
Right.
there's no way. There's no way that they could actually make a profit and sell it for what they do.
So, I mean, if we want to make real changes, we have to think about what the problems really are. And stop talking about things like, you know, when a baby's heart begins beating and have this argument going on and on and on and on.
The fetal
Okay.
citizen pre.
Okay, we're more worried about things that haven't happened or,
What else we're worried about, you know, and I think it's disgusting, let me say that, but we're really worried about the Marines peeing on these dead Afghan Taliban, but no one's like
the
worried.
fact that they killed them.
They just blew their brains out with like machine
I
guns.
can't tell you, but I can guarantee you that there have been American bodies that have been shot and peed on, and there's no world outrage going on.
Dragged through the streets,
and
naked.
such.
Yeah.
I mean, war is not something that is done by a rule book.
Exactly.
It's killing other people, and like
Yeah.
the end game of you know, that's pretty damn extreme.
Is
You know,
death is there.
yeah.
But honestly, those Marines should be ashamed of it.
I
Because,
totally
you know,
agree. Yeah.
exposing yourself
And they should be
putting
disciplined.
exposing yourself and putting it on camera is much too much for the American public.
Yeah, well, that brings it to another topic. You know, you posted about this week. I posted it originally. Sinclair. You know,
Yes.
what is with, you know, and it seems to be a recurring theme of places I go where you got a camera. You know, someone thinks that maybe people are switching cameras to guns.
Yeah.
That's what they act like it though.
Well, I
But
think
yeah,
the whole-
when you go somewhere, it comes down to the idea of public entities claiming
Private
property rights.
They did that at Courthouse
Yeah.
Square. They tried
Yeah.
to say,
Oh, yeah.
this is,
Right.
it's public, but Montgomery County owns it, therefore it's private.
And we get to tell you when you can use it,
Right.
what protest.
And the day on the sidewalk.
Even saying the sidewalk.
Yeah, and it's like, well,
was
Montgomery
private.
County owns this. This is private property.
Yeah.
But it's a sidewalk in
Yeah.
the city. What are you talking
Yeah.
about?
Sure,
Yeah.
and what I tried to do was set the tripod up in the main courtyard in front of like the
Outside.
bookstore. You know, everyone in the world's open there, and you know immediately police come. You know, they say you got to have a permit.
And did you ever wonder how they immediately came?
I have no idea. Well,
Yeah.
they
Because
saw
they had security cameras everywhere.
Exactly. They saw you.
Yeah.
And so I've heard from one guy who said we were doing a story with the Wall Street Journal online, I think, or someone, I forget, it was a large publication. He said, you know, they came and hassled us. So he was a displaced GM worker, I guess, who's involved in the
Right.
program over there at Sinclair. And so, you know, they said, screw it, we're leaving. And I had another guy from Sinclair call me this morning, said, you know, I had the director of maintenance come out, and he's like, what are you, he was taking photography out in that same area.
Right.
You know, what are you doing? You know, and told him there was Homeland Security.
Yeah, the director
Concern.
of maintenance kicked him out.
And I'm like, you know, you guys ever heard of Google Street Maps?
Yeah,
That whole
yeah.
campus is on the,
You know,
and
the same thing.
they themselves have a map of the
But David,
campus.
the same thing, when I was chalking sidewalks and things for my campaign, people were somehow thinking I should be arrested for vandalism, for using chalk on a
Tried
sidewalk.
to do that.
Yeah.
Chalk! You know, what's next? We're going to arrest kids for doing hopscotch?
Right,
You
right.
know, I mean, it's...
But you know, interestingly, that there's that guy in Illinois now. Illinois actually has a law against you filming any police activities.
Yes, that's
Any
been a big
citizen
thing.
filming, which I think is right. They can film all they want,
Right.
you know, and so and they do now.
Yes.
They're forced to basically film arrests and things like that. But there's this one guy that was filming these sort of innocuous things. He's facing 75 years in prison
Right.
for filming the police.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nobody can watch the watchers.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Is they don't want anybody peering into what they're doing.
And you know, the odd thing is London is like the most videoed,
Right.
closed circuit city. They don't feel any safer.
Right.
It hasn't
Right.
been.
No,
Absolutely not.
riots have been breaking out.
It doesn't-
you know,
it
for
doesn't
the
cut down
last
crime.
year.
Well, that's the thing, though. They're going to fix that. They're
Having-
going down to Texas to figure out how to get police in their schools like they have in Texas so that everything will be
Right.
better when they get back.
Yeah, they're arresting lots of kids in schools lately.
For throwing paper planes. They
Yeah.
have real police in
Yeah.
the Texas schools.
Yeah.
Throwing paper airplanes. They end up with records. One of the kids was as young as freaking 6.
Yeah.
You could never fly an airplane because you were throwing paper airplanes at age 8 in the
One
cafeteria.
girl sprayed some perfume on her because one of the kids next to her said she stunk. And
they got arrested.
they suspended her.
Yeah.
First they gave her a ticket and then they suspended her. I mean, it's
Well,
ridiculous.
litigious society. That's why we need more lawyers in Congress.
Yeah. I mean, we just criminalize. I mean, it's great because we school kids.
Are we still a free country?
I don't think so, because we're all guilty
How many
until
people-
proven innocent,
How many,
basically.
how many people do we have incarcerated compared to the rest of the free world?
We're the champions.
Yeah.
The champions.
We are the best, number one. We are like, anyone tries to beat us at incarcerating people, we will.
Yeah,
whoop
we
'em.
we showed Russia how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised we haven't built the world's tallest prison.
No doubt. The world's
Yeah.
tallest.
Yeah, we could like make a prison like
But-
bigger than like the
but-
Empire State Building.
But the cost of imprisoning these people is one that society bears.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
And-
some people are very enriched by
Yes,
that
the very
cause.
Of
few at
course.
the top, they
But
don't have a problem.
That's the
Yeah.
whole thing. At some point here, we have to understand, you know, I love hearing tourists say, oh, I brought federal dollars, or it's state dollars in this project, or, you know, the politicians, well, those are all our tax dollars.
Exactly.
It's,
That brings it. Mark Manovich, finally, of any Dayton politician I've ever seen, brought in the subject, actually broached the subject of the war on drugs.
yes.
You know,
Yeah.
it's been going on in
Yes.
Dayton. You know, Dayton's probably been hurt by the war on drugs, you know, disproportionately compared to a lot of cities because of its geographic location, 75, right from Miami to Detroit, New
Right.
York, everywhere else. But he actually asked the question, and it was an Adam project for him, and everyone
nuts.
just was, well,
They
yeah,
were
well,
shocked.
yeah, no one really addressed, really touched it. One of the guys in the room, Kevin Jones, got up and was like, stomped out.
And then
Kevin does that.
And then
Yeah.
nobody talked about it.
And then
after
no one
that.
talked
That's
about it. And I asked Matt Joseph, and he was like, "Well, I'll need to see more
He can't
evidence."
give you an answer.
Yeah,
but no,
exactly.
And I'm like,
Manovich took a bold step there.
all he did was ask a question.
But here's the
really,
thing.
he didn't even
Here's
say
the thing.
he had a
I want to
position.
really talk about this because one of the things, there's a news site going up, beyourgovernment.org, and they're trying to get people to run without corporate backing and everything. They have a pledge, and one of the things is legalize marijuana. And you have to sign off on it. And I have no problems with signing off on legalizing marijuana. Because I am sorry, nobody selling dope or smoking dope on the corner can hurt me near as badly as a bank foreclosing the house 2 doors down and letting a bunch of meth heads move in.
Yeah.
Because seriously, I lived in my house since 1986. I didn't have any break-ins, I didn't have any thefts, I didn't have any problems until 3 years ago. The
And now
exact
it's
same
like
time
The
that
geekers moved in.
the geekers moved in a couple doors down, the cops come to their house 3 times a week. These kids are derelicts, and they're not getting any help. There's no parks program, there's
Yeah.
no mentoring, there's nothing going on.
Yeah.
And the cost
And they probably watch mom and dad just getting effed up all the time, or never, or just never being there.
They're never sober.
Yeah.
But this is, you know, so legalized pot versus a bank. You know, what a bank can damage, the damage of a foreclosure or damage on a neighborhood. I'm sorry, but Bank of America has done more damage, and Deutsche Bank has done more damage to neighborhoods on the west side with their foreclosure, not maintaining their properties, than the drug dealers have. And the drug dealers, I still don't have I still have a problem with, you know, people selling meth and crack and some of these, and all that stuff, but pot ain't gonna kill us. And if they're all getting stoned, they're less likely to go out and shoot each
Exactly.
Well, you know, I mean, brings up a subject. All I see every weekend is people shooting each other
Binge drinking.
in the parking lot of a bar at like
Yeah.
3 o'clock.
So exactly
If
what
they were smoking a hookah, it probably wouldn't be happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
it's insane. But the reality is we can't afford to keep doing what we're doing.
Right.
It's not working. The cities are going broke. The states are going broke.
Yeah.
But are they willing to jump off that merry-go-round and stop the Leviathan?
Not yet. No,
Of
they're not.
course not, because we have to hit rock bottom apparently.
Well, and it has more to do with the fact that the people that are getting rich off the system are the ones that are also contributing to their campaign.
They want to maintain
event.
it status quo.
Yeah. So, I mean, it becomes very difficult because they'll talk about, oh, it's about morals or family values, and, you know, they'll make up all this crap to convince us that that's what we should do.
Let's talk about morals and family values. When I go talk to a classroom of Dayton Post school kids, and I ask, how many of you kids have a friend or a relative or know somebody in prison? And more than half the kids raise their hand.
Right. Yeah.
Now, if I go out and do that in Centerville, do I get the same results?
No.
No. Okay? So, what are we breeding in this inner city, and how are we going to solve it?
We're definitely breeding contempt for the power structure. I mean,
Well, that's absolutely right.
I mean,
Well, they're not getting anything
Well-deserved
back.
contempt.
They're not getting anything
Yeah.
back.
well,
Well-deserved contempt.
well,
as
whether
far
it
as
is or
I
not, you know, but you know, working with kids for as long as I have, and inner city kids, you know,
They don't start out bad.
No, I loved it. I loved it. But I had a route from Fairview, went through Westwood, but all through the west side,
Right.
out to Drexel, ended up almost in Moraine, and these kids hated the police.
They're
I
like
don't
8
mean-
years old.
Yeah, they're like 8 years old, and they would, you know, say like, I go, why do you hate the police? You know, like, they follow us around everywhere we go. We want to go get a candy. They were always asking, where you going?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, and there is, you know, in minority and poor communities, there's this siege mentality of police. You
Oh,
know?
yeah, there's tons of research that supports that.
Sure.
So of
And,
course
you know,
they hate the police.
Right.
And you know, all of that, I think, you know.
But do we
leads-
have police athletic league anymore? No. Do we have parks, rec centers? No.
These kids don't like the police because you know, they see the police as the people who take their parents to jail.
Right.
Or the people that follow them
Or
around.
that follow them around and
But-
make
Exactly.
you feel like a criminal
Or
when you
they
haven't
come
done
and
anything.
take their brother and sister out of the home, because that does happen.
Right.
But let's
All
also
the time.
let's also look at, you've got people going to prison for drug-related issues,
Non-violent.
non-violent. You've got alcoholics going to prison, you know, for doing things like driving drunk. You're not treating the problem.
Oh, correctional facilities aren't
They're
correctional.
not correctional, and they're not what's the word they like to use?
Rehabilitating.
Oh, yeah, they're not
Rehabilitation, part of rehabilitation. But the costs involved of doing it that way, instead of keeping them in the community and working on the real problem. And I know about this firsthand because I've been involved with somebody for a long time who has mental health issues and has no access to mental health care. And it has cost us way more than it would have cost to get him into treatment,
Right.
get him through school, and he'd be a productive citizen. But no, now he's got a record, he can only do certain
Well,
things,
right.
and he's still fighting the same demons he had before.
Right, and I think that's a big problem in our country, and we've been talking about that this week. National security threat is all the mentally ill people walking around this country who are being ignored. I mean, Dayton alone, we've had 5 mental health clinics closed in the past 10 or 12 years. There's nowhere for anybody to go. I have a friend who's got a
The
child
homeless
who's got
shelters.
some mental
Right.
health issues. For years, she's been like, I don't know what to do. Have somebody help? And no, there's no services to help
And if there were
parent do that.
services, they wouldn't have insurance to
Right.
cover it.
Until he gets
Exactly.
in so much trouble
Until
until
it
he
gets to the
qualifies
point
himself for the
Exactly.
to go to
criminal
jail.
justice system.
Right,
Exactly.
exactly.
So,
And it's much more expensive. The jails are not equipped to handle mental health
right.
illnesses.
Right.
Yet, how many people have gone to prison over the Wall Street fiasco?
Right.
You know, none. How come the presidents of these banks that needed a bailout still have jobs? I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that there was that
Well-
one article about the guy who stole, robbed a bank of $100 because
Yeah.
he was homeless
Right.
and he knew they would put him in jail. And then there was the guy who swindled like $100 billion or whatever it was.
Right.
And yeah, he
Slap
didn't get
him there.
anything.
Well, Mike Pepple ran MCSI, where
Oh, yeah.
we built, the Port Authority built him this big office building, they gave him tax breaks and everything else. 7 days after stealing millions of dollars, ruining people's
Yeah.
fortunes, Mike Pepple belongs in prison till the day he dies. He's a criminal. He ruined people's lives. Now, I don't know if this story is true, but I had a friend in the police force who told me one day she got a call, a guy goes into the Sunoco, says to the woman, I've got a gun, I'm robbing this place. Call the police. Police come. He says, I got a gun in my pocket. I'm robbing. Take me. And on the way, he says, my chest hurts. Take me to the hospital. He's having a heart attack. City paid for his whole thing. Goes,
Smart guy.
yeah, well,
Exactly.
It's,
yeah.
Good timing.
that's how you get. That is how you can get health care.
That's how you get free healthcare.
Yeah, rob a bank.
So good. Oh my.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
you know, had Pepple, what was the total amount that he screwed everyone over?
oh, it was over $120 million.
Okay, if they found $120 million worth of drugs in his house.
He'd be in
Oh.
prison for life.
Yeah. Look at the lives that have been, destroyed by this economic crisis that was manufactured, by the system that thought it all up.
Yeah.
I mean,
They'll find
How many
employees not
times?
getting pensions while GM employees do. GM gets bailed out.
Well, I had, it was
Yeah.
something I went to the Delphi retiree hearings.
Yeah.
I was asking some of these, because these were all salaried
Right.
employees, And I'm like,
Yeah.
don't you wish you had a union now?
yeah,
And
exactly.
they're like, well,
Yeah, nobody really gave us a real answer.
because they knew that they wanted to say, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone I know who was in the union's getting paid now,
Right.
at least something. And,
Right.
they had just had like enormous
Cuts.
We don't.
hits.
Well, the Cooper Tire folks up in Findlay, Ohio, been locked out since November because Cooper Tire said you have to take a 40% cut. And they said, we can't take a 40% cut. So they locked him out and brought in scabs.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I mean, we really need to keep solidarity with labor for sure. I mean,
Our government wants us all to be
In that.
slave wagers. I
In
mean,
that.
look at Alabama. What is it, like the Honda? There was some car company that came in because they, Alabama can offer wages that are equal to what they're paying in China.
Right.
Well,
It's
that's
like,
I saw this one article, I think it was this morning.
We can't pick any strawberries in Florida because we can't have them.
can't have immigrants come.
Can't have immigrants.
I love that. I love Alabama's like seeing crops rot
There
because
was
they
a-
hate immigrants so bad.
Right.
Awesome.
There was an opinion piece in the New York Times, and they were saying, I used to feel like those young people in Occupy Wall Street, had lots of debt, good education, couldn't get a job. But I went to China, and I just want to tell them that's the answer. Don't be pissed off. And I'm like, oh my
Go to
God,
China.
oh my God, people used to come here.
Right.
This is like what?
Sean, let's
Yeah.
talk about inflation of wages because NCR paid their CEO a long time ago when it was kind of Chuck Exley. They paid him $7.2 million a year. I went, whoa, because I worked it out. And that worked out to $4,000 an hour.
Wow.
$4,000 an hour. That was only $7.2 million a year. Okay. Now, the president of and the two top people at Miami Valley Hospital are taking $4 million a year each. You know what that is a weekly pay? $77,000 a week. Not spend that much money. Not spend that much money.
People who run in the hospital making that kind of money.
It used to be you were a doctor and you saved somebody's life.
Exactly.
Sure, if you're a doctor,
And you saved their life, it might be worth that.
Right.
If you were the very best and you were the only person. But to run this
Not a
hospital,
spook sitting behind a desk.
Yes.
Yeah.
well, that's the question. Isn't it
our
a form?
focus is wrong.
Isn't it a form of American myth that's been
The CEO is God?
Yeah,
Yes.
the CEO is like this very capable person.
Yeah.
They're over here. They're doing this. They're doing this.
They're not doing anything.
They're not
and they're
doing
running their companies into the ground.
And most of them, if you've been around and that set it all, aren't really that impressive.
No.
Do you remember when
Well, the same
Casey-
goes for the political set. I've said, I could find
How hard is it to say no?
in any bar?
How hard is it to say
I
no?
could find a better, as able orator and thinker
As the
than-
people we have in Congress.
Yeah, or the people that are running for president right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, that wouldn't be hard at all.
sure.
Well, I remember when Kasich took office and people were calling him out on raising all the salaries for his staff. And he said, oh, but they would have made so much money in the private sector. And then
Right,
some
right.
folks were looking into it and they're like, they weren't.
Yeah.
This guy's never been in the private sector. How do you know? It was just, but it's like this mess. Ridiculous. People that actually do something should be the ones that get
That's
paid.
what we're going to be doing. We're going to have a regular rotating cast of people. So if you think this is the David Esrati show,
It's
you're
not.
wrong. But Dave came out and was lucky enough to share some of his time with us. But yeah, if you have a suggestion, send it to news@DaytonInformer.com.
with a contact person, how we can get a hold of them. Maybe we can get them on the show as well.
Thank
Anything
you.
else? Goodbye. Thank you very much for watching.
Vote.
And tune in next time.
Vote.
Vote.